Okay, today we're going to learn how to make a pottery head, and we make a pottery head by making two thumb pots, and I'm going to be showing you how to start this out. When I've finished my demonstration, what you need to do on a piece of paper is to draw a series of diagrams to show that you understand how to make your pottery face. And then you have to do a drawing to show how you intend your pottery face to look. So you're each given a piece of clay like this. The first thing I want you to do is divide this up into three. You will have some kind of knife, either like this or this kind of thing. So what you need to do first is to carefully divide this up into three pieces. And actually, before we continue, just to show you the things that you need your piece of clay, you need a damp sponge, just can't be too wet, but as you go along you need to try and keep your hands moist, not wet but moist. You need one of these green tools with a jagged edge, or something like a fork, and also some kind of knife to do some cutting. So with two of the pieces, try and find two of the pieces that are a similar size. I think these two are. You then, using the palm of your hand, not just the fingers, mash that together as much as you can to make it into a nice smooth ball. I'll be doing this very, very quickly. Of course, when you start to do this, I will expect you to take a lot more time and care. So there we have one, and I'm just going to do the other. You may want to press like this a little bit, but you must make sure that you don't trap any air in your clay. That's very, very important. So if you see cracks, smooth them over. So we should end up with two small, smooth balls. One of these is slightly bigger than the other, but that actually doesn't matter. Now the next thing we need to do is to hollow these out, because we're going to make two halves that we're going to fix together that will make a hollow egg shape. Now the reason we have to make it hollow is if clay is too thick, once it's dried out and you fire it in the pottery oven, something we call a kiln, it will crack. So hold the ball in the palm of your hand, place your thumb in the middle and press down. Don't go just go about halfway down. And then what I'm going to do is to pinch like this around the shape. And the idea is that I'm going to slowly make the walls of this pot thinner. So just pinching very, very carefully my thumb and my fingers. So that's the start. I need to continue with that, and then as I'm doing it, you will see that I'm turning the pot in one of my hands and pinching with the other. That makes sure that I gradually make the walls thinner as I'm working with it. It's important that you do take your time here, otherwise you will end up with walls that are too thin. You must pinch from the bottom, otherwise if you pinch near the top too much you'll make it too thin. So I should end up with something like that, so a width of about 1 centimetre. I'm then going to put it down and tap it gently so that I end up with an even top. So I'm going to put that here, and now I'm going to work on the other one. Again, you may want to have your thumb inside and your fingers outside, or your fingers inside and your thumb on the outside. Again, remember, I'm working quickly, so this demonstration doesn't take too long. And again, I'm just going to tap that down. So I now end up with 2 hollow pots. Now, one of these by itself is what we call a thumb pot. It's the simplest way of making a pot, and primitive man would have made things like drinking vessels in this way. So you could continue and continue if you just wanted to make, if you're making just a pot, to make it thinner. But this is what we need. Now, you will find that we need to join this together, and you find that clay, when it's damp, will stick together very easily. However, as it dries off, it will fall apart. So it's very important that we make sure that we join them carefully together. And we do this by using either a fork or a rough-ended tool, and we make scoring marks, rough sort of crisscross marks on the surfaces that are going to be joined together. We'll go on that one, and now on this one. What I now need is some of this, and you'll see these containers that contain very watery clay, and we call this slip. And what we do with the slip is that we apply this with either a finger or a brush. I should actually use a brush, but I haven't forgotten to have one here with me. So I dab it gently because I don't want to smooth the surfaces. They need to remain rough. And my hands are starting to feel a bit dry with the clay, so I make sure they're moist. So I have roughed both the surfaces, and now I'm going to join them together. So I'm going to press them together and then move them in opposite directions slightly until I feel these starting to grip. What I now need to do, either with my finger or with the end of a tool is to fill in the gap, to make the join together. You may find that one of the sides is a bit bigger than the other or sticks out a little bit bigger than the other, so smooth that one into the gap. So again, the main thing is to make sure that you have a strong join. So that's the most important thing, to make sure it's joined properly. I can now use my finger to make this as smooth as I can. Finger or thumb. Don't use a sponge, because a sponge will make the clay softer, because you'll be adding more water to it and it'll start to get very mushy and start to fall apart. So what I'm doing is ending up with a kind of potato shape. Now, if you remember from when we were doing our portrait drawings, if we're doing a face, we want the top part to be wider than the bottom part. So what we can do quite gently, we can start to squeeze a little bit. So what I'm doing is squeezing the bottom part here to create a chin area. So now, as you can see, the top of the head is a bit smaller than the bottom. I can then lean it down, but as you can see, if I leave it like that, it's going to fall over. So what I need to do with a piece of my spare clay is to create a support, almost like part of the neck, that will go on the back. And again, as we did before, I must make sure that I rough the surfaces to be joined together. And also apply some slip. And then, as you can see, that provides a support, almost part of the neck, to allow. So we've got the basic shape of our face. Now again, as you may remember, it's important that we map out the proportions of the face. So again, as with a drawing, I'm going to find the middle, you can use something sharp, find the middle of the face, and draw a line down the middle. That's going to help me a little bit later with my proportion. I've then got to find the middle, so I'm guessing that it's there. It's around there. So I'm doing a mark across here, not too deeply, to show the level of the eyes. And as you will all remember, the level of the eyes is halfway between the top and the bottom of the chin. Next, I am going to find the level of the base of the nose, which is halfway between the eye level and the base of the chin. I'm going to check that mine's correct, because I don't think it is. No. These come a little bit lower. And then the bottom lip mark is again halfway between the base of the nose mark and the chin. So there we have our basic head shape. with our markings. Try and stand that up straight. And now we have to think about making the features. So, before we go any further, in case we forget, we must make sure that there's a hole somewhere in this head, because at the moment we've got air inside the head shape, and eventually we're going to fire it in the kiln. Now, if there's air trapped inside, when air, as you may know, as it gets hotter, it expands. So if you haven't put a hole to let the air escape, your head will explode in the kiln, and we don't want that to happen. So before you go any further, get a sharp tool, and probably the best place is to make a hole underneath. And while you're doing that, scratch your initials underneath. Now we now need to think about making the main features, so I'm going to put this to one side, and I'm going to think about making ears. So I'm going to take a piece of that clay, again making sure that my hands are moist. And I'm going to roll it into a ball. Then I'm going to start to flatten it. Again, squeezing between thumb and my fingers. And because they're going to be ears, I'm going to stretch the shape a little bit so it doesn't stay as a circle. To that kind of shape. And as you can see, I've hollowed it out a little bit in the middle. And now to make the two ears, what I'm going to do, find a knife and cut that in half as evenly as I can, and then hopefully these will be of a size to go on the face. Now that's quite a bit too big, so again I can adjust that with my knife and make these ears smaller. And I can think about adding more detail to the ears by giving them lobes, etc. But what we mustn't do is make the ears too thin. So there's one ear there, and we'll put one ear there. So we have our ears, and we're just going to check that they kind of the right proportion. They appear to be, perhaps a bit big. Now the next piece I need to make, we have ears. I'm going to leave them there because we're going to stick all the pieces on later. I need to make a nose, and again I'll take a piece of clay from there into a ball, and now I'm going to start to shape it so it's a little bit more like a nose shape. If you're not sure, what I tend to do is to make things a little bit bigger than I think they need to be. You'll notice that the ears were a bit... Let's have a look at this. That nose is probably too big, so I'm going to cut it down. and see how it fits into the space. So I need to cut that. Have you stopped it?